We begin with breaking news that is reverberating across the country this morning. It's just after 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. And I'm here in New York with a major update on a story that has the Trump administration on the defensive. A federal judge has just ruled that President Trump's decision to send the National Guard into Los Angeles was unlawful, saying it directly violated the Posse Comitatus Act, a law that dates back to the late 1800s and was designed to prevent the U.S. military from being used as a domestic police force. The judge went even further, warning that if the president continued to move in this direction, he would essentially be creating a national police force with himself as its commander, a scenario that many see as a direct threat to the constitutional limits on presidential power. What makes this ruling so consequential is not just what it says about Los Angeles, but what it could mean for other cities Trump has mentioned, particularly Chicago, which he has repeatedly singled out as a place where he wants to send troops next. The administration has already been preparing to pour federal resources into Chicago, not just for immigration enforcement, but also for crime crackdowns. But now, with this court ruling, the legal and political landscape has shifted dramatically. Chicago's leaders aren't waiting to see what happens. Mayor Brandon Johnson has already signed executive orders designed to block or restrict federal action, requiring any federal officers operating in the city to follow local rules, banning collaboration with city police on immigration enforcement, and even mandating things like body cameras and restrictions on wearing masks. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker is also expected to announce further measures. The tension between federal power and local authority is escalating quickly, and this ruling just added gasoline to the fire. To really understand why this matters, you have to look back at what happened in Los Angeles. President Trump claimed he was sending the National Guard there to control unrest after protests tied to immigration enforcement actions spiraled. But critics argued from the start that he had no authority to mobilize a state's guard without that state's consent. Governor Gavin Newsom objected immediately, saying the president was overreaching. The judge's decision backs Newsom, finding that the deployment broke the law. The Posse Comitatus Act has always served as a safeguard to keep military forces from being used against American citizens in routine law enforcement. That's why active duty soldiers cannot make arrests inside the United States, and why the idea of troops patrolling city streets has always been deeply controversial. By pushing the National Guard into California without the governor's approval, Trump crossed a line that courts are now calling out, and the ripple effects are going to shape what happens in Chicago and potentially other cities Trump has mentioned like Baltimore and New York. What makes Chicago stand out is that the rationale is different. In Los Angeles, the stated purpose was to quell unrest after protests. In Chicago, Trump has openly said he wants the Guard there to crack down on crime. That is a dramatic escalation because the Guard has rarely, if ever, been used preemptively to police crime in a major American city. Legal experts have been warning that this raises profound constitutional issues, and now that a federal judge has ruled against Trump in California, the Chicago plan looks even shakier. Still, this administration has shown a willingness to push back on court rulings, appeal decisions, and keep moving forward until blocked at higher levels. Already this morning, Trump doubled down on social media, declaring that he will clean up Chicago whether local leaders like it or not. That kind of rhetoric is not only provocative, it sets up a direct confrontation with city and state officials who insist the president is trampling on their authority. Meanwhile, preparations are already underway. Reports suggest that a naval base just north of Chicago has been set up as a staging area for federal resources. At least 200 agents from ICE, Border Patrol, ATF, and the DEA have already been tapped to move into the city, with more expected in the days ahead. Their mission will be to carry out arrests, raids, and sweeps targeting what the administration calls dangerous criminals and undocumented immigrants. But if history in Los Angeles is any guide, these operations can extend far beyond their stated focus. In LA, Border Patrol agents were seen conducting sweeps in parking lots and neighborhoods, even after judges ruled such actions illegal. Community advocates fear the same could happen in Chicago, creating fear and distrust across immigrant neighborhoods. And now, with the National Guard component in limbo after the court ruling, the optics of federal agents descending on Chicago could look even more aggressive. Immigration attorney Alan Orr explained why this ruling matters so much. He said it isn't just about stopping Trump in one case, it's about reinforcing the broader constitutional framework that keeps presidents from wielding military power on U.S. soil. Orr stressed that while this ruling is important, it doesn't erase the damage already done. Troops have already been deployed, people have already been affected, and confidence in the system has already taken a hit. He also warned that trying to use the National Guard as a supplement for local police forces is costly, ineffective, and ultimately unsustainable. Guard members are pulled away from their civilian jobs, hurting local economies, while taxpayers foot the bill for an operation that doesn't address root problems. And symbolically, it suggests that local communities cannot solve their own issues without federal troops, which undermines trust between residents and their own governments. The other issue, of course, is immigration. Trump's framing of this as both a crime crackdown and an immigration crackdown blurs the line between two very different challenges. Deporting immigrants will not magically solve systemic crime problems in a city like Chicago, and using military-style tactics won't create lasting safety. Or pointed out that even if the administration somehow deported 1 million people a year, there would still be millions more undocumented immigrants left in the country. And the economic damage would be massive, from universities losing foreign students to tourism declining because of America's hostile image abroad. We are already seeing businesses hurt as immigrant labor vanishes and families are disrupted. Or argued that real solutions lie with Congress passing meaningful immigration reform, not with dramatic raids and mass deportations. Until that happens, crackdowns like this treat symptoms without addressing causes. All of this raises a deeper question about who we are as a nation. For more than a century, the Posse Comitatus Act has stood as a guardrail to keep military force separate from civilian life. By testing its limits, Trump isn't just pressing a legal question, he's challenging the very norms that define the relationship between government and citizens. Do we want to live in a country where federal troops can be dispatched into any city at a president's discretion? Or do we want to preserve the principle that local communities have the right to govern themselves? The judge's ruling is a strong defense of that principle, but the administration's next moves will show whether those guardrails hold. As Chicago braces for what could come next, residents are on edge. Families are worried about raids. Local officials are preparing lawsuits, and immigrant communities are preparing for an influx of federal pressure. The courts are likely to see a flood of new cases challenging the legality of specific actions. And around the nation, people are asking whether their own city could be next. What happens in Chicago may very well set the precedent for how far federal power can go in overriding local authority. If the courts stand firm, it will reaffirm the strength of our system of checks and balances. If not, we may be entering a new era where the role of the federal government in local policing is fundamentally transformed. For now, all eyes are on Chicago, where the clash between federal authority and local autonomy is unfolding in real time, and the outcome won't just shape one city's future, it will shape the future of democracy, the rule of law, and the balance of power in America.